Oi, gente! Hello, everyone! Eu sou Virgínia, sua professora brasileira. I'm Virginia, your Brazilian Portuguese teacher. Welcome to this class! Bem-vindos a esta aula. Today, we are going to talk about how to say would, should, and could in Portuguese. We are going to start with a brief review and then we are going to do some exercises together. I'm always checking the live chat, so use the chat to make any comments, ask questions. I also have prepared a worksheet with a summary of the lesson and extra exercises for you to practice. So be sure to download your worksheet. You'll find a link in the description below this video. Now let me see who is here. Please say hi to me in the live chat so I can see who is here. Let me know where you are from. De onde você é? Quem tá aqui? Ah, Ruth, tudo bom, Ruth? Lini, Andrew, olá! Quanta gente! Noela, olá! Bem-vindos, bem-vindos! I'm always so happy to see everyone in the chat. So this class will last about 30 minutes. Hello, oi, Margus! Olá! I hope you stay with me until the end. And I like my classes to be collaborative, which means I like you to participate in the chat. I love to hear from students' perspectives because I see my students as language learning experts. You are an expert in learning Portuguese. So if you have anything to add during the lesson, feel free to add your perspective in the live chat, any tips to learn this topic, this specific topic. Also, if you're new here, you can just collaborate with the class by asking questions. What questions do you have related to this topic? Okay, I really like my classes to be collaborative. Olá, Andrew de Sarasota, tudo bom? Maryland, oi, Isabela. Arkansas, tudo bom? É Arkansas, né? A pronúncia é diferente. Califórnia, oi, Roger. Olá, olá. Okay, everybody. So I'm going to share my screen with you now, and then I'll go back to the chat later. Let's get started. Vamos começar. Okay, so I have some announcements. I always write them down so I don't forget. And the first one, I'm so excited about this. I have a new video podcast. You'll find it on YouTube, on Spotify, and in every podcast platform. It's called Speaking Brazilian Podcast, Conversations in Portuguese. And as the name says, the focus of this podcast is to have natural conversations. I want to offer my students access to real life natural conversations. That's why I created this podcast. My husband Rob is my co-host and we talk in a very natural way. So this podcast, of course, is more suitable for intermediate and advanced learners, but I also recommend it for beginner level students who want to train their ear. So go take a look. We have just published our first episode this past Sunday, and we'll publish the second one next Sunday. So go take a look. You'll find it. I'll also add the link to the podcast later in the description below this video so you can find it easily, okay? And my second announcement is about Black Friday. Black Friday is coming. It's next week. And as always, we have a big promotion, a big sale during Black Friday week. If you've been thinking about trying any of our courses, this is the perfect time. So we'll offer a big discount for our self-paced courses. We'll send an email on Monday about this to everyone who is in my email list. If you want to learn more about our courses, go to our website, speakingbrazilian.com. Okay? Okay, so these are the announcements. Let's get started with our class. Vamos começar nossa aula. So today's topic is would, should, and could in Portuguese. I'm going to give you some very common uses and translations, but it's very important that you remember, that you understand that these words, they will not always have the same translation because these are modal verbs. They're used in complex sentences. So we do have like a very common pattern that we see, but depending on the context, you might find different translations from one language to another, right? I'm going to give you some examples, and then if you have any questions about this, please let me know in the chat. So let's start with should. Should. So the most common translation of should into Portuguese is deveria. Deveria, this is the standard way of saying should. You should do this. Você deveria fazer isso. So when you're giving like someone a suggestion, right? In other contexts, we would probably use some other word, but when you want to say that someone should do something, this is the most common word that we use in Portuguese. However, we do have a more informal version of should in Portuguese, which is devia. So we use devia because it's easier to pronounce. You don't have the r sound, right? It's shorter. So a lot of people in informal language, colloquial language, say devia instead of deveria. This is perfectly fine in colloquial language, but I want you to know that deveria is the standard form, okay? So let's see some examples. João deveria estudar mais. João should study more. I'm not going to read the translations anymore. You can see on the screen, right? João deveria estudar mais. I also recommend that you repeat after me when I read the examples, so you can practice pronunciation, and also repeating out loud can help you retain the information a little bit more. So, same example using devia. João devia estudar mais. João devia estudar mais. You see that devia and deveria, they sound very close. It's a very similar pronunciation, right? But devia is easier because we have two letters, less letters, so it's easier to pronounce. Next example. Você deveria falar com ela. Você deveria falar com ela. Or, você devia falar com ela. Você devia falar com ela. So both ways are used. Just to give you some extra background information on these tenses. So these are tenses, verb tenses in Portuguese. This first one is called futuro do pretérito, also called conditional, condicional. And the second one is actually the imperfect past tense, okay? These two tenses, many times they are used interchangeably, although in standard grammar, there is always a preference for one or the other, depending on the context. Let's move on to the next one, could. I'm going to go briefly and quickly through this review, and then I'll go back to the comment sections and see what questions or comments you have, okay? And then after that, we'll do some exercises together. Could. So the most standard translation of could is poderia. Poderia. When you want to mean, like, I could do this, or you could do this, we say poderia. This is the standard, is the same tense as deveria, right? It's the futuro do pretérito, the conditional tense. But also, the same way, we have the informal version that we use a lot in everyday conversations, which is a shorter version, easier to pronounce. We can pronounce it quickly, which is podia. Podia. Poderia or podia, they are both translated as could, right? Let's see examples in sentences. Você poderia me ajudar? Você poderia me ajudar? Você podia me ajudar? Você podia me ajudar? Você poderia fechar a porta, por favor? Você poderia fechar a porta, por favor? Você podia fechar a porta, por favor? Você podia fechar a porta, por favor? So all these examples are common use of these words. And please note that these two verbs, deveria, devia, poderia, and podia, they are always followed by another verb in its infinitive form. So let's go back to should here. Deveria. You say, deveria estudar. You see, so we conjugate the first verb, but the second verb is left in its infinitive form. Deveria estudar or devia estudar. Same thing with another verb. Deveria falar, devia falar. Okay, so the second verb here is actually the most important verb here. The first one, it's a modal verb, right? But the action that we want to happen here is the second verb, right? So it's the main verb. Same thing with poderia. We say poderia ajudar. So this is the main action that I want to happen, right? Could you help me, please? Você pode me ajudar, por favor? Ou poderia me ajudar, por favor? There is another way that I just said. I'm just going to write it here. But then it's a more direct way, which is você pode. Você pode fechar a porta? Você pode me ajudar? So this will be translated into English as can. Can you? Can you help me? Can you close the door? It's more direct, right? I recommend using poderia because it's more polite. Of course, if it's a very close friend, it's okay, but you want to be polite with close friends as well. But many times we just use the pode, can you, which is it's also a very quick way of asking for a favor or something. Okay, so always remember the second verb is in its infinitive form. Always two verbs together, the modal verb and then the main verb in its infinitive form. Actually, this structure is very similar to English, but of course, when you think about all the contexts in which these words are used, then we have many differences between English and Portuguese. We are not going to cover everything in this class, but I hope to cover the most important uses so you can come out of this class and you can I wanted to be able to use these words in Portuguese in the most common contexts. Let's move on to would. But before I move to would, I'm just going to have some water. I'm going to show you the screen so you can read it. So you see here that would is a little bit different because in Portuguese, we have a tense for could and should, which is the conditional tense, right? And it's a separate word, and we use two words just like in English. We use the verb, poderia, the modal verb, and then the main verb. However, when you think about would in Portuguese, we don't use two verbs. We don't separate the modal from the main verb. We change the form of the main verb. I'm going to repeat, it seems complicated, right? So going back to could, in English I use two verbs, right? Could you help? So we have the modal could and the verb help. In Portuguese we do the same. Você poderia me ajudar? We have the modal poderia and the main verb ajudar. So we have two verbs used together, right? In English, you do the same with would, right? Would you help me? In Portuguese, we don't do that. To convey this idea of would you do da da da? We have one, instead of using two words, we use one single word. We change the form of the main verb. So instead of using a modal verb plus the main verb in its infinitive form, we change the form of the main verb. Okay, let's see examples. So basically we use the base of the main verb and we add the letters ia at the end. There are some exceptions, some irregular verbs, but most verbs follow this pattern. Example, comer, eu comeria. I would eat, blah, blah, blah. Falar, eu falaria. Ser, eu seria. Okay, so, oops, this is wrong. Seria. So we use this structure with all verbs with a very few exceptions. And then comeria means, actually in English, would be two words. I would eat. In Portuguese, one single word, one verb. Eu comeria. Again, we have here the tense called futuro do pretérito. So, in other words, in Portuguese, to say would, should, and could, we can always use this tense, futuro do pretérito, right? So remember this, futuro do pretérito. It's a complicated way of saying the conditional tense in Portuguese, okay? So now I'm gonna go to the chat. If you have any comments or questions for me, now it's the right time to ask. And then after that, we're going to do some exercises together. Deixe-me ver seus comentários. Você comeria peixe cru? Eu não comeria peixe cru. Eu não como peixes. Eu sou vegana. Eu poderia ajudar. Muito bom, muito bom. Olá. Você podia me perguntar? Me perguntar primeiro. I think you meant, could you ask me first? Is that what you mean? So I would say, você podia me perguntar? Me perguntar. Seeing your comments here. Comment from Ross. Oh, Ross. Devian, podia, technically are imperfect. Yes. Yes, that's correct, Ross. So basically, they are the imperfect tense. So if you're talking about a situation that happened in the past, these are the forms that you're going to use. But many times we just switch from the conditional, the futuro do pretérito tense, and use the imperfect tense because it's easier to pronounce. This is my explanation because we do that a lot in Portuguese, right? We shorten words to make it easier to pronounce so we can have a faster, more fluent speech. So this happens a lot. But this also happens in Portugal in different ways. They also, the imperfect tense and the pretérito do perfeito, futuro do pretérito tense, the conditional tense, are many times used interchangeably, which is a curious thing that happens in Portuguese. Looking, okay, if you have, I'm going to go to the end to see if you have any questions or comments. Question from Cicero. Yes, so I do have a PDF with the summary of the lesson and some exercises. The link is in the it's in the description below the video. Okay, just click the link and download your PDF. If you are in my mailing list, I have already sent you the PDF, so you don't have to download it. Just open your email and click the button to download it. Yes, this is also perfectly fine, Paula. Pode me ajudar? So this is a very quick and can you help me? It's more direct. So you're being less polite, let's say, but if you say por favor, it's fine. If you just add please, por favor, and then you'll be fine. I think that we use this tense could, the same way that we use in English, right? You can say, can you help me? Or could you help me? The meaning is almost the same, but could, it's a little bit more polite, right? Gives a little bit of more distance. Same thing as in Portuguese. You can say, você pode me ajudar? It's more direct. Or I could say, você poderia me ajudar? It's a little bit more polite and less direct, but both are used. This is just the name of the tense, Kiki, conditional. The standard name of this tense is actually futuro do pretérito, future of the past. It's a very weird long name, but many times you just call it conditional. But in this case, there's no condition happening. It's just the name that we use to refer to the specific tense. In some other contexts, this tense is used to convey this idea of a condition, right? But we're not talking about this today. I do cover this topic in the PDF. If you download the PDF, I give some examples. Muito bom exemplo, Didier. Poderia deixar um like? Vocês poderiam deixar um like neste vídeo? Muito bom. Question from Michi. The verb tense is the same in the first person and second person. Yes, this is a good thing about this specific tense. It's the same for the first and second person, actually third person singular, which we use the third person as a second person. This is a whole new topic in Portuguese, right? But yes, I could say eu poderia, você poderia, ela poderia, ele poderia. So same conjugation for all singular pronouns. We change for the plural pronouns, right? But for the singular pronouns, the conjugation is always the same, which is good news. So I could say, eu poderia, I could, você poderia, you could, ela poderia, she could, ele poderia, he could. And a gente poderia, we could. Same conjugation. But then if we change to the plural pronouns like nós, which is the formal we, nós poderíamos, then I have to change the conjugation. Ótima pergunta. What else? I'm going to the end again to see if there is any question I haven't answered. Você pode me ajudaria? No, Ross. Then it's if you use the modal, the next verb has to be in the infinitive form. This is the rule. If you use the modal pode, poderia, deveria, the second verb must be in its infinitive form. So I have to say here, você pode me ajudar? Você pode me ajudar? Ou você poderia me ajudar? So In general, in Portuguese, whenever you see two verbs together, the first one is conjugated, the second one it's in its infinitive form. Muito bom! Ótimas perguntas, comentários. Let's try to do some exercises together, and I hope this exercise can also help you answer some of other questions that you have. And then after, I'll save some minutes at the end to also come back to the chat and see if you have any follow-up questions, okay? Vamos lá. Vamos para os exercícios. Let's do some exercises together. Vamos lá, vamos lá. So remember to download your worksheet with the summary of the lesson and also more exercises. So we're going to do some exercises from this PDF, but you have more exercises in the worksheet. The link is below the video in the description. So this is a translation exercise. I usually don't do translation exercises because I particularly don't find them, they're not my favorite type of exercise, but for this specific lesson, I chose to do this because I'm literally comparing Portuguese and English, right? Could, should, and would, how to say that in Portuguese. That's why this exercise is an exception. It's based on translation. You see that all my other lessons, most of my lessons do not include translation exercises because I like you to think in Portuguese as much as possible. But let's see how can we translate these words in Portuguese. And I only want you to translate this specific word, could, would, and should. Okay? So the first one, before I give you the answer, I wanted to speak out loud. Try to say so you can retrieve in your memory, so you can practice and try to remember and really acquire this knowledge, right? So how would you translate? Could you wait a little? You have everything here except the word could. Você esperar pouco? Could you wait a little? Você esperar pouco? Você poderia esperar pouco? So this would be the standard way of saying, could you wait a little? As I said before, I could also use a more informal language and say, você, and then the formal way would be, você podia esperar pouco? The meaning is the same. And if I want to be more direct, what could I do? I could say, você pode esperar pouco? So here would be more like, can you wait a little? And this first two would be, could you wait a little? Okay? But these are all used. You hear Brazilians using all these forms. Vamos para o número 2. He should talk to a doctor. Say out loud how to translate this, how would you say this in Portuguese? Ele falar com médico. Ele falar com médico. Ele, so should is deveria. Ele deveria falar com médico. He should, ele deveria. This is the standard form, and then we have also an informal way of saying this, which would be ele devia. Ele devia falar com médico. This is very common in colloquial language, okay? We do have the more direct version of the verb dever, which is deve, but this is very very strong. It's like he must. So this deve here, as I said before, this topic is very complex because the translation and the meaning from English to Portuguese and vice versa would not always be direct and the same. So in this case, if I'm using the same verb here, but when I say deve, I'm being very direct. I'm always giving an order. So here I would translate ele deve falar not as a should, but as a must. He must talk to a doctor. So this would be my translation of the word deve in this situation here, this context. So you see that the same verb in Portuguese can be translated into English as should or must. We don't have a separate verb. We just change the conjugation, the tense, and then because in English you don't have different tenses for should and could, it's just a fixed. In Portuguese, all these verbs that I'm using here as that I'm showing you as modals in Portuguese, they all have all the conjugations, present, past, future. They all have many forms. And when you use this verb here in the present tense, it changes the meaning. It's a very intense, direct. You must, você deve. Vamos para o número 3. Let's move on to number 3. I'll go back to your comments in a minute. If I could, I would go to Brazil tomorrow. So this example is interesting also to show that could, that we just translated as poderia a minute ago. When I'm talking about a completely hypothetical situation, could is not poderia. We also use the same verb in another tense. So here is a subjunctive tense. This is a more advanced topic. So this word pudesse also is translated into English as could, but here I'm talking about a hypothetical situation, so the form is different. We are not going into details today because this is it's a more advanced topic. I do have many videos on subjunctive mood on my channel if you want to learn more about it, but I don't recommend this topic for beginner level students. I would recommend only for, let's say, maybe upper beginner or intermediate. But the second form here, you know how to do it because we talked about it. How would you say would go? Would go in Portuguese. Would go. There is only one form to say in Portuguese. Seria eu iria. Actually, as I said, there's only one form. I also remembered that sometimes you also simplify this in informal language. There is also a possibility to say eu ia, which is the same thing that happens with deveria and devia. With poderia and podia also happens with this form. I could also simplify iria, which means would go, and I could just say ia, which is also a simplified form, which is another tense called imperfeito in Portuguese. So these two forms are used and correct. Okay, so a lot of information here. I'm going to go to your comments and see if you have any follow-up questions. We won't have time to cover all the other questions, but you can download the PDF and do these exercises and see and correct your answers, okay? So let's go to the comment section. Vamos lá. What else? So here, Ross, I would not say eu te ajudasse because the imperfect subjunctive here is not used in this type of structure, okay? So the first one would be eu te ajudaria. I would help would be eu ajudaria. Eu te ajudaria se eu tivesse tempo. So the second part is correct because the se here is a trigger for the subjunctive mood. The first part of the sentence should not be in the subjunctive, should be in the conditional. Eu te ajudaria. I would help you. Muito bom. Se eu ganhasse na loteria, eu viajaria ao Brasil. Excelente. Eu viajaria. I would travel to Brazil. This is a very common structure. It's a formulaic. We always repeat this structure all the time. If I could, I would, right? Se eu pudesse, eu faria tal coisa. We use this structure all the time. Se eu pudesse, iria ao Brasil amanhã. Muito bom. You got it right. Iria. Viajaria is also correct. Viajaria means to would travel, and iria means would go. So they're both correct, just a different verb, right? So iria, would go. Viajaria, would travel. Any last comments? Let me know. I will finish the class in a couple of minutes. Before going, I just want you to remind you to download your PDF so you can practice this a little bit more. As you can see, it is a complex topic because there are so many. It really depends on the context. But if you remember what I covered in this class today and what is covered in the PDF, you know the most important use. We did not cover like subjunctive mood or talking about past or hypothetical situations, but we covered the most common use of all these words. I hope this was useful for everyone. If you have any follow-up questions, you can also use the chat, the comment sections below the video after the class finishes. I always answer some comments later, and also the community can help you. You always have students helping each other. Uh, and I want to remind you to go check out our new podcast, Speaking Brazilian Podcast, Conversations in Portuguese. I'll add the link to it below the video as soon as I finish this class, so you can check it out. We are super excited about it, and it's entirely in Portuguese, of course. The goal is to help you with developing your listening skills. And last comment, I will have a Black Friday sale next week. So if you're interested in purchasing or signing up for any of our self-paced courses, take a look at the courses that we offer. Go to our website, speakingbrazilian.com, and I'll send out emails about this promo next week, starting on Monday, okay? I see one question here from Behemoth. Will you be having these Thursday sessions in December and January? My plan is to continue to have these sessions every other week. So one week I publish a pre-recorded video, and the other week I come and teach a live class. I really like these live sessions because it can be more spontaneous and it's more interactive, right, as we are doing it right now. So I plan to continue in December and January. If I cannot for some reason, I will let you know. Okay, I'll post. I'll send out an email or post in a note in the community space in the on YouTube. But yes, I plan to continue teaching these classes every other Thursday. If you don't want to miss any class, I recommend that you sign up for our newsletter, because I always send an email the day before and also 1 hour before the class. So sign up for our newsletter. Just go to our website, speakingbrazilian.com, and you can sign up for the newsletter. Or if you just download any PDF or worksheet, you will be added to our newsletter. Of course, you can unsubscribe anytime. Guys, thank you so much. Muito obrigada por ficarem comigo até o final. Thank you so much for joining me for this class. It was a pleasure to be with you today. I hope it was useful, and I'll see you again next week with the pre-recorded lesson, and then 2 weeks from now with another live session. Dia lindo para vocês, beijo e até a próxima. Tchau, tchau!